Hello everyone, this is Maureen and welcome back to my crochet story where I share with you the two things that I love, teaching and crochet. Well, you know what today is. This is Monday and the Basic Stitch series. Now, before we get started on the stitch for today, let me first say thank you very much all of you for being here. I appreciate the time that you're taking to sit down, hopefully have something to drink, and watch to see what it is I have to offer you today. Now, if you are a returning subscriber, you know that I really do appreciate your patronage. If you're new to my channel, may I suggest that you take just a moment, or possibly really more towards the end of this video, and go look at the other content that I have. And if you like what you see, please consider hitting the subscribe button and look for the bell that has the little hugs on the side. And if you click it, it will notify you every time I upload any content. And then you can pick and choose what content you wish to watch. So today's stitch. Today's stitch is going to use two of the basic stitches you already know, the single crochet and the double crochet. Now we're going to take both of those stitches and put them in one space to create what's called the grit stitch. Now I really like this stitch. Of course I like a lot of stitches, but this is my go-to stitch when I want to make dish rags, you know, to wash my dishes or clean off the countertops, that kind of thing. Even my own face wash cloths, bath cloths, whatever you want to call them. And it's also a very, very quick stitch if you get caught and need to put a baby blanket together real quick, because it goes so fast and it's just a one row repeat. So let me show you what it looks like. Now this is made with the Peaches and Cream cotton. I really like the cotton, but you can make this using any cotton that you prefer. I have even used the just this cotton that you can get at the Dollar Tree. I mean, it works up just as fine. I don't really, excuse me, use my really good cotton on this type of a project simply because you know how washcloths are. If you're going to use them to do heavy duty work, then my philosophy is, okay, I'm going to put them through the ringer, folks. Whether I'm scrubbing my face or I'm scrubbing that countertop over there, they're going to get a workout. So I don't mind using a little bit cheaper cotton to make these. Now, if I'm making a baby blanket, that's a totally different type of yarn. But, you know, the other thing is you can make them any size you want to once I tell you the multiple and how to get started. You can make them smaller squares. I've done this quite a few times. Make up 6 or 8 of them and tie them up with a little bow. Stick them in a little basket with some face creams, you know, face washes, that kind of thing to give as a gift. I've also done the same thing like for new mothers. Do the same thing with a regular washcloth. Just kind of roll it up and make it pretty just a little, you know, tie some ribbons around it, stick it in there with some lotions, again, some maybe bath salts, you know, that they can soak in and just make themselves feel good. So there's a lot that you can do with this little stitch and this little washcloth type pattern. But like I said, I use a little bit cheaper cotton because, like I said, I put my stuff through the ringer and it doesn't take any time to make a few new one of these to replace the ones that, you know, start showing their age and their wear and their tear. So anyway, I am going to use in my demonstration today, I've got some acrylic here. It's just a 4-weight. I think this might have been some, if it's not the mainstay from Walmart, then it's probably some Red Heart that I had from a previous project. So I'll be using it so that you can see better the stitches, how they go together, and how this is going to work up. So take a minute, go grab you some yarn. If you want to get some, you know, like a little ball of something that you've got just to practice with, that's great. Or if you already have some cotton and you're ready to go, You can do this with any fabric any yarn that you like to create your textile. You can also use it with any hook that you want to use. You know, you can make these stitches small and tight, or you can make them open, lacy, loopy, whatever you want to do. So since this is a 4-weight, I will be using a I hook. Now, like I said, you can use any hook you want to. I would at least the first time or two whenever you're using this with whether you use cotton or an acrylic or polyester, you know, just anything, even your blends, I would recommend that you play with needle sizes to see if you want to go up a hook size or down a hook size from what's recommended for your yarn. It's just going to come up to your own style and taste and what you think you're going to use it for. Okay, so I'm going to pause here. You're going to see my little intermission sign there with my cute little avatar, and I'll be back in just a few minutes once I grab my materials. You do the same. See you in a second. Alright, so I have my acrylic yarn, and I'll be using a size I Susan Bates hook. It is a 5.5 millimeter. I have been practicing a little bit with a furls. This one is an I hook as well. I'm really enjoying it, folks. I really am. I have bought several of the Streamline design from Furls. The only difference and a little bit of difficulty, or I shouldn't say difficulty, but difference between the two is if you look, let me see if I can get it. Can you see maybe if I put them side by side, top of each other. Do you see the top lip of the hook or the head there? See how much longer this one is than this one? It's like that with all of the furls. So I'm having to adjust my twist going in and out, you know, when I'm making my hooks, because I am a pencil holder. So it's a little bit of a slow go, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with slow, but I am learning how to adjust and to use it, and guys, I really do like the feel of it. It's just as light as my Susan Bates, and the nice thing about it is that I don't crochet using this little divot on the hook anyway. I tend to crochet a lot further back than right here. I've never been, even whenever I write, I write up here. I'm not, you know, down here on top of the lid. But anyway, that's a little side note. But you will in the future start seeing me using my a different type hook. You know, like I said, I've always been a Susan Bates girl, and I thought that's what I would always be. But should never say never, as my grandma and my mom and several other folks have told me throughout my life. Never say never, because it's going to come back to bite you, and it has in this instance. But let's get on with our tutorial for today. So I have my 4-weight acrylic, and I've got my eye hook. I'm getting ready to use my style of attaching my yarn to my hook. Remember, there's different ways out there, and hopefully you've been crocheting long enough now to find a technique that you like. So the grit stitch is built from a multiple of 2, and then once you get the multiple of 2 that you want, you're going to add one more chain. Well, I'm going to be working 13 sets or 26 chains for my multiple of 2, and then I'm going to add 1. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. Now, always when you're building your chain, take just a moment to look back through it and make sure that your chains are as consistent as they can be. Alright, so there's my 26, and now I'm adding my next one, which will give me my lift for my first row. Now, as I've told you before, most of the time whenever I start a project, I like for my first row to consist of either single crochets or maybe even a half double crochet to give it a nice finished edge. Well, we're not going to do that with this particular project today. What we're going to do is, and in fact anytime you use the grit stitch, unless it's in a particular pattern in which there's already been a wide band or something that's been built up for you. But we're not going to be putting a band on this little washcloth. So in order for me to have a nice finished edge, remember each chain, as I like to say, has 3 loops, not just 2. So when you look at your chains, you have a top loop and you have a bottom loop. And when you take and lay the flatness of the chain on top of your fingers, you'll find that there's this 3rd loop here. A lot of people call it a bump or a bumpy. Alright? And that's what we're going to be working in on this to make our first row here, so that we'll have this nice chain edge, which will look like a row of single crochets when we get finished. So let me attach my yarn back onto my hook. Now, the very first stitch for every row is going to be a double crochet, and then you're going to end each row with the single crochet. So once you get finished with one row, we're going to chain 1, turn our work, and start the next row with a double crochet. Go all the way across the row, and then we will end up with a single crochet. Alright? So in order to start this row off, we're going to yarn over, and we're going to work in the 3rd chain from our hook. Now remember, this loop here on your hook never counts as anything. It's just the lift or the loop that you're going to be working with. It doesn't count. So I'm going to skip the 1st chain, the 2nd chain, and into the 3rd chain I'm going to go into the back loop. So I'm going to turn that over, and I'm going to go in, pull up a loop. I now have 3 loops. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and there is my first double crochet. Alright, in order to begin the grit stitch, we're going to skip a chain and go into the next one. The grit stitch starts with the single crochet, and then we go right back into that same loop and put a double crochet. Remember, I told you the grit stitch is used with the single crochet and the double crochet worked into the same stitch. So skip into the next one. We start with our single crochet, and then we finish off with the double crochet in that same loop. Now you will find as you work across this first row that that loop there that you worked into is going to stretch out a little bit. But once you get to the end and you're finished and you start on to the next row, it's going to settle itself out and it'll be just fine. Alright, let's make another grit stitch. Skip the next stitch, into the next one. We'll put a single crochet, and then a double crochet. Again, skip the next loop and into the next one. Skip this chain into the next chain. Single crochet goes in first, and then the double crochet. And that is your repeat stitch all the way down the rest of the length of your chains. Skip a stitch or skip a chain, whichever one you want to call it, and into the next single crochet and a double crochet. Skip a stitch, single crochet, and a double crochet. Skip, single crochet. I can get her in there. And sometimes it's a little hard to work through that little loop in the back. That's why if you're not comfortable using it, then you can just turn your chain back over and work only in the top loop all the way down. But as I said, I prefer working into this back loop here, because you're going to see here in a minute when I get down to the end of the row what a pretty nice clean edge it gives. And when you're using this stitch to make a baby blanket, It also does not offer any open loops, so to speak, there along the edge here, in which little baby fingers might, or toes if they don't have socks on, can get caught in. Get me some more yarn here. Skip. Now remember, always on your first row or two, don't get in a hurry to be a speed demon to get this done, because you want everything to start out with a nice foundation. Okay, I'm coming down here to the end. I'm going to skip a loop and go into this very last one, and since it is my last one, I'm just going to finish it off with a single crochet. Alright, and there she is. Now let me talk to you about this edge and why I like going into that last loop. Look at that nice finished edge there that it gives. Okay, I really like that. You almost, if you didn't have your string here or your yarn, you wouldn't be able to tell which am I supposed to work back into this one or back into this one. That's why I like it. Alright, get my yarn back in here. Sorry about that, it hit the top of my laptop there. Alright, now in order to start the next row, we're going to chain one and turn our work. Now in this very first stitch here, which was our single crochet that we ended from the previous row, we're going to go right back in there and we're going to work our double crochet that's going to start this row. Alright, so we're going to loop over, go right back into it, right there, and make our first double crochet. Now you're going to find from here on out, every time you work your grit stitch after you've completed your first stitch of the row, it's always going to be worked into that single crochet from the the grit stitch from the row below. Because remember, after we create our first double crochet starting the row, we're going to skip a stitch, which happens to be the double crochet from before, and we're going to put our first part of the grit stitch into that single crochet. So we're going to put a single crochet in, we're going to go right back in with a double crochet. I'm supposed to skip the next stitch. Well, I'm skipping a double crochet and going into the single crochet. So there's my single crochet, and here's my double crochet, both of them into the same stitch. Skip the double crochet, and I'm back into the next single crochet. Skip, single crochet into the previous single crochet from the row below. And I've run out of a little bit of yarn here, so let me get, oops, come here you. Get me some whale. Okay, let me stop this here just a second. Get me some yarn unrolled here, and then I'll feed it back. Alright, so I'm finishing this particular grit stitch with the double crochet. There we go. And skip the double, go back into the single, stitch from the previous row. And we just keep working there along. There's my single, there's my double. Skip, there's the single going into the single stitch, and there's my double. Skip, there's my single going into the double. Skip, single, and double going into the single. I don't think I said that right just a moment ago, but you know what we're doing now. Skipping the double, putting a single in with the single and a double in the same stitch. We're coming down here to the end, so I'm going to skip. There's my single. I'm going to put the double in there with it. Alright, now when we come to the end of the row here in every row thereafter, this last stitch here that we have is that first double crochet that we made. So what we're going to do is we're going to skip that double and we're going to go into this third loop here. Remember we skipped those first 3 chains? We're going to go into the top of this of the third chain from our beginning row and put in a single. Alright? So there are our first 2 rows. Look at that nice textile that is created, and folks, what's really nice is it's the same on both sides. And see how this row here, how the holes that we made going into those third loops in our first set of chains there, they're starting now to settle down and fill themselves in. Alright, let's build another row together. Chain 1, turn your work. Now there's that first single crochet, or the last single crochet that we made, and we're going to go right back into it by making a double crochet. Skip the next stitch, and we're going to go into this first single crochet by making a single crochet and a double. And we're right back to our repeat pattern of just making a single and a double into the same stitch. Skip a stitch. Single, double, skip, single. And you see, once you get the pattern down and understand where it falls within the stitches from the row before, you can really take off, and it almost becomes a mindless pattern for you to sit there and you can watch TV, or as I'm doing, you can possibly carry on a conversation with a friend, listen to an audiobook, or just sit there in the quiet of the garden with a nice cup of something to drink beside you, listening to nature or watching the kids play outside, or just whatever it is you want to do. A lot of times, folks, I can't tell you how many washcloths I have made riding in the car on a road trip. Now here I am at the end of my row. This is the double crochet from the previous row, and this is the only time, or excuse me, from here on we don't have that extra loop that we had from the first row. So when we get down to the end here now, we will be putting our single crochet into the top of the first double crochet from the row before. Okay, start again. I'm going to make this last row with you, and then I'm going to leave you to finish out the rest. So there's my first double crochet, skip, here we go again, single, double, skip, single, double, skip, single, double. As I said, after a while it just becomes a very natural, fluid motion that you can get going here to create, whether it's a washcloth, even a tea towel, if that's what you'd like to call it, you know, something that's a little bit bigger if you're making it out of the cotton. Now I have made, using this stitch, I have made small washcloths for newborns, for babies, but with that, folks, I will spend a little bit more money and use a really nice, good cotton for that. Right, I'm coming down to the end of my row. Here is my last grit stitch, and I will finish off the row by putting my single crochet into the top of my double crochet from the previous row. Alright, so there she is. See the nice textile? And if you rub your hands over it, it's really very nice. You can pick it up and it has a nice squish to it. So this is what it looks like with the acrylic, and of course in a solid color, which makes it nice. And then here it is in the cotton. Has the same textile, same texture, everything. So I hope that you have enjoyed this tutorial working with the grit stitch. Now remember, as I said, as long as it's in multiples of 2, you can make this as wide as you want it and as tall as you want. I will tell you that by working 26 stitches plus the 1 to get started, I did 20 rows, and that gives me a very nice square dishcloth body wash. Now I like mine to be, big enough to fit in the palm of my hand. You don't have to make yours as big as this, or you can make it bigger. It's totally up to you. You can also make it however wide you want and just continue it. It's very versatile. As I said, whatever you wish to do with it. I hope that you have enjoyed this tutorial, and if you do, don't forget to hit that like button and share it out if you don't mind. If you know of someone who is just starting out learning crochet and want a small project and a new fast stitch to learn, head them on over this way and let them watch the video. Again, and as always, be the light out there in the darkness for someone today, folks, because you never know. It could be your light that they are waiting to see. Love you all. Thanks for being here. Bye.